Tonight, Nightwing goes to the most fantastical place that the writers could imagine, Chicago. DC Universe Presents ends its anthology with a continuation of a backup that goes nowhere, and Wonder Woman grabs a dude's junk. I'm not kidding, that's a plot point. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 85 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and it's week 3 of WTF month. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's kind of the weakest week so far. Like, don't get me wrong, there's twists, there's surprises and such, but nothing that really got me as much as resetting the entire timeline like they did 2 weeks ago. I kind of think they blew their load a bit early on that one. Because this time around we're just getting like, oh, this character might be evil, and honestly, I couldn't care less about that. But something I did want to throw out here at the beginning of the episode, because I usually save this for the end of the episode, but the analytics have shown you guys don't really watch to the end of the episode. So, we have a bunch of places that you can talk to us if you are some reason shy about the comment section on YouTube. We have a Discord, we have a subreddit, we have a Twitter for as long as that's going to continue to be a thing, and we have a Patreon for people who want a little bit of extra attention. All that description or on screen, be sure to check it out. But anyway, you're here for comics. Let's talk about comics. We have the number 19 issues of Batwoman, Birds of Prey, Catwoman, Nightwing, Red Hood and the Outlaws, Supergirl, Green Lantern New Guardians, DC Universe Presents, Justice League, Wonder Woman, and Legion of Superheroes, all coming out this week, as well as the 7th issue of Sword of Sorcery and the 3rd issue of Justice League of America's Vibe. Things of note, final issue of DC Universe Presents, next part of Wrath of the First Lantern in Green Lantern New Guardians, and Sword of Sorcery, pretty darn good. Nothing really big happening, just pretty darn good. So be sure to check that out when we get to it. But first and foremost, I gotta talk about the events, so let's jump right into Green Lantern New Guardians. Green Lantern New Guardians number 19, written by Tony Bedard, art by Andre Guinaldo. This is the next part. I don't think we're quite at the penultimate issue of Wrath of the First Lantern. And last time in Green Lantern 19, we had the First Lantern destroy Sinestro's planet of Corrigar. So this issue is picking up in essentially the rubble of the planet. And Kyle is narrating saying, like, you know, we had a thing on Earth called, like, the bombing of Hiroshima and whatnot, and I learned about it when I was growing up. And this is kind of bringing back a lot of memories of that, as we see him and Carol in the rubble, just basically like, yeah, no, this is messed up. So let me go back 3 hours earlier, where Carol is just flying top speed to Kyle, who is catatonic, I guess is the best way to say it, on his floor. And Carol's like, oh, geez, all right, well, looks like you were already hit by the First Lantern, and he came after me. What happens if he went after all of our teammates? So Kyle's like, oh, geez, you're right. So he tries calling them up, and we see that all of them have already been hit, and so they're not answering Kyle's call. And he's like, oh, geez, oh, I am so useless. I have all of this, like, white lantern power, and I don't know what to do with it. And his ring says, hey, by the way, we found Sinestro. And he's like, oh, sweet, cool, let's go see what he's doing. Cut to, oh, his whole planet's gone. And Kyle's like, I have this white lantern power, and I can still see them. I can still imagine what it was like. Like, it wasn't, everyone on the planet wasn't like Sinestro. They were just normal people. It wasn't like cartoonishly evil land. They were just people. And now they're all corpses floating around us. And he gets super frustrated. And they think, okay, well, did Sinestro do this? Or was this the First Lantern? And Kyle categorically shuts it down. He's like, this was First Lantern. There's no way Sinestro blew up his whole planet. And then Sinestro comes out of nowhere, just like, we're going to have a talk, buddy. And so big fight scene breaks out. Carol tries to defend Kyle while asking where Hal is, and Sinestro's like, nah, screw that. I'm talking to him. So he just bats Carol away and says, here's what's going to happen. You're going to use you're going to give me that ring, and I'm going to use it to save this. I'm going to fix all this. And Carol keeps on trying to get into it and like, no, you're going to tell me where Hal is. I'm super desperate to find out. And Sinestro just keeps on making constructs to like send her away until finally, during the fight with Kyle, Sinestro is restrained by Green Lantern. I learned how to pronounce this before. Beej, the chipmunk one. And he's with Simon Baz, and they're like, oh, hey, who's this guy? Hi, new Green Lantern. And Beej is like, okay, for those who don't know, this is Simon Baz. He's Hal Jordan's replacement. And Carol's like, Hal? You know where Hal is? Where's Hal? What's going on? And Simon's like, yeah, I kind of lost him in the dead zone, so he's not coming back. And Carol's very upset by this, but not as upset as Sinestro, who then freaks out and says, you guys need to stop wasting my time. And Kyle, he keeps on calling him like alley rat or something like that. You need to use your ring. Bring back my people. And he's like, no, I'm pretty sure bringing back the dead is the Black Lantern's realm, and I don't want to dive into that. But then Simon Baz pipes up, and he's like, actually, my brother-in-law was kind of in a weird dead-ish state, and I brought him back to life with just Green Lantern power, so maybe you can do it, Kyle. And Kyle's like, fine, I'll give it a shot. Why not? So he uses it, and we see all of Korugar start like rebuilding around him, and he speaks out to all the spirits of the people, and he's like, hey, everybody, I can open the door, but I need you guys to step through it. Okay, can you do that for me? And then all of it just crumbles, and he says, I can't. I'm unable to do it. So Sinestro just charges at him, steals the ring off his finger. Mind you, they're in space, so he starts suffocating without a ring. Carol puts up a protective force field around him, and as Sinestro puts on the ring, it says, no, I don't want you. You're unsuitable. So the ring flies off his finger and goes onto the finger of Simon Baz, who then becomes the White Lantern. And everyone's like, oh, well, hey, maybe, yeah, I mean, he did it before. Let's see if the new guy can do it. So he focuses hard, and he focuses on Korugar. He starts bringing everybody back, and then the ring pops off his finger again and says, nah, sorry, I got confused. You're not Kyle. Kyle, I'm coming back onto your finger. So he pops back on. Simon feels bad that he couldn't do it, but then Sinestro's like, you know what? Screw it. I don't even want to fight you guys anymore. You all are just a waste of my time. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this my way. And he grabs his yellow lantern, which we saw at the end of that issue, and he flies off for revenge. And Simon, Kyle, and Carol are like, who's he getting revenge? Is it Guardians or is it the First Lantern? And Kyle says, well, whoever it is, it won't fix that massive hole in his heart. And Carol, crying, says, that makes two of us. Because, yeah, Hal's dead. So, I don't know. This is the first one of the Wrath of the First Lantern tie-ins that absolutely had no First Lantern in it. There was the Green Lantern core issue last time, number 19, that kind of had that same thing, but even then, it was still a little bit of him at the first point. This is the first one where there's absolutely none. And yeah, it just feels like he didn't do anything. Because Carol just shows up at his house. He's, I guess, imagining that he's living in this world where his dead girlfriend's still alive. And then he wakes up and it's just not the real place. So he's not warping reality at all. He's just putting them in a mental state of, oh, here's what it would have been like. In which case, I don't feel like he's powerful at all. This issue didn't feature him at all, and yet it managed to depower him down to the point of he's just the Black Mercy. He's just the flower that shows you the things that you want. That's all he is. So maybe we'll eventually get to the reality warping stuff, but we've got a Red Lanterns issue and then the Green Lantern finale. And that's it. That's all that's left in this event. So I don't get it. I don't see why he's such a threat. He seems really weird. I'm sure, yeah, he destroyed a whole planet. Okay, we've met like 17 people in this series who have destroyed planets on their own. I'm not that worried about destroying planets. So yeah, I don't know. I'm disappointed with how this event has been playing its villain, in that it just feels like more of a let's look back at all the things we did rather than a here's the big climax. So overall, art's fine. Actual writing itself is fine, but the overarching plot is just draining away from me with every single issue with it. So I got to give this one a, I don't even know. It's going to be close to like a 6. It's an okay issue on its own. I'm trying not to be harsh on it for that, but it is part of a larger event that's just failing with every next issue that comes out. So yeah, I'll give this one a 6. Batwoman number 19, written by J.H. Williams III and W. Haden Blackman, art by Trevor McCarthy. So last issue, we had Chase go down to the beach to meet up with some mysterious figure that apparently she hadn't seen in 2 years. And this issue immediately picks up with, it's her sister. I don't know if we're supposed to know the sister. It doesn't feel like it. But regardless, she says like, oh, hey, I thought you were killed in action, Cameron. And Chase is like, oh, no, that was our dad. And so they just get off to a little thing on how their dad used to be a vigilante, used to like dress up and crime fight and whatnot, and it got him killed. And Chase apparently does what she does with the DEO in order to make sure that nobody is dressing up and going out there as vigilantes anymore. And Terry, her sister, is like, nah, I've just been living in a nomad lifestyle. I've been moving constantly. I've been disappearing. Like, yeah, no, it's just a whole thing. I'm off the grid. And they have this little flashback about how Chase asked Terry for advice on her date to the prom, and she had a wonderful time and whatnot. And basically, the meetup here is that Chase is asking for advice on what to do. She feels bad about what the DEO is asking her to do, but she views it as for such a greater purpose that it has to be worth it. And while she can't give all the details to her sister, she's saying like, oh, I have to choose between doing something horrible and doing what might be right. And she's like, well, that's not like a choice. You do what's right. What are you even here for? And so they get a little bit bickery with each other. And finally, at the end, she says, like, oh, I need to make sure that no one else ends up like you. And Terry's like, okay, bye now. Don't come back. So she hops back in the helicopter and sees that Bones makes sure that that Batwoman is there. They're going to set up their trump card or whatever. So cut to Maggie, who is on a bridge, and she sees there's a dead body of a young child. And Bullock is there saying, oh, it's the weeping woman again. She's back. She's killed another. And as they follow this trail of blood, they see another dead body and another and another and another. And as she makes her way off the bridge, she comes down to the riverbank and they see Kate there. And she's saying, oh, don't worry. I found them all. And turns out this is just a nightmare. Maggie wakes up and she apparently the last one was her own child, Jamie. So she wakes up. She's definitely shook, and Kate's like, hey, look, I'm here. I want you to be able to talk to me. Tell me what's going on. I feel like this might be the scarecrow toxin you breathed in. And she's like, nope, I got to deal with this on my own because you have no idea what I'm going through in regards to these children. So at that point, we go to Kate's dad, Jacob, who I thought last issue it might have been a flashback. It turns out this is his new wife, I guess, who found out about Betts being a vigilante. And so Jacob is showing her all the stuff and is saying like, yep, this is our headquarters, this is where we do everything. And the wife, which I don't think they ever say, no, sorry, Catherine. To have a Kate and a Catherine is very confusing. But Catherine's like, okay, one of your daughters just became a sociopath and died. One of them became a vigilante, and now you want to do the same thing for Bet? Like, maybe you shouldn't be acting as the father figure here. And Jacob just tells her, like, hey, she was going to do it anyway. I'm just offering her some structure. I'm trying to save her. And Catherine gets really pissed off about that. Just like, no, she's like this because she's like you. She has Cain blood. Like, this is exactly what you guys are like. You're stubborn. So at that point, she basically says, like, look, I'm willing to let this happen just so I can be here and actually provide some emotional support for this poor young girl. But to make that happen, I need you to tell me everything, because if you're hiding anything from me, I will leave you and I will never come back. And Jacob takes a second and he says, I think I have a son. We don't get back to that, but I will. So then we go into a fight scene. Bet and Kate are teaming up against someone named The Shard. I'm not familiar, but regardless, they show how they're teaming up to fight together. And there's little writing on top of each panel saying how Bet managed to mess up throughout the fight. Like, oh, here, watch this and watch that, do this other thing. And turns out Shard was attacking off-duty DEO agents. And when questioned, Shard says, because nobody steals from the religion of crime. So then we see after the fight, all the writing was from Batwoman basically showing Bet how she can improve. And Bet's like, hey, why do you think you're working with the DEO? And why do you think the religion of crime thing is involved? And she says, doesn't matter. You're not getting involved with the DEO. To which point, Bet makes the point of, aren't you working for them? If they're so bad, maybe you should get out. And she basically says it's not that simple. And when Bet calls her out for it and says, okay, look, if you're not able to share in that with me, then we're not partners anymore. I can't trust you. I got to go do my own thing. She says good luck, and Batwoman's like, I never said you were my partner. Get out of here. So then we cut to a ship where Chase and Agent Asaf from last issue are just playing shuffleboard waiting for her. Batwoman shows up and threatens Agent Asaf to say, hey, why is the Shard claiming that you stole from them? And when Chase doesn't give in to the threat that she's going to actually hurt somebody, she's like, look, okay, here's the thing. You want answers? You got to talk to Bones. Bones inside. He's waiting. Let's go. So go inside, and Bones is like, hey, I need you to find out Batman's identity. And Batwoman says no. And she says, okay, but here's the deal. Recently, a Robin died, we think, and right now he's the most emotional he's going to be. If he's going to slip up, it's going to be now. And Batwoman says, no. And then he says, okay, well, if that's what you're saying, then I'm going to go ahead and throw your father in jail. And she's like, go ahead. He'll understand. What you're asking me is stupid. And he says, all right, fine, whatever. But I'm also going to tell your dad that you didn't save your sister when you could. And she's like, what do you mean? And turns out video feed starts and she sees her sister Beth is in DEO custody, and Beth is saying some lines from Alice in Wonderland, because of course she is. And then she looks up at the camera and says, I'd like to see my sister now. Okay, so all of that was fine. It was all very well drawn. It was all very well done. Trevor McCarthy doesn't go as crazy with the layouts as the original issues did. I can't remember if it was Blackman or William doing the arts on that, but regardless, it's fine art. It's perfectly okay. I think my biggest issue with it is that we're doing the I think I might have a son thing, in that I'm so tired of long lost siblings. It's too much. I don't want it anymore. We literally opened this issue up with Chase revealing that she has a sister, and we're just doing it again halfway through the issue. My personal opinion is it's lazy. Is that if you have to go back and say, oh, and there was a secret child that I never... No, stop. It's not good. Especially when you have fully fleshed out everything else. So overall, that was disappointing. The rest of it's whatever. I mean, we were always just going to get to the point where Kate's meeting up with Beth again. So we'll see what happens when we get there. But I got to give this one I'll give it a 6.5. But I cannot in good conscience give it a 7 when we're doing pretty basic stuff all throughout. And then hitting it with the and then I had a son thing. It's, okay, whatever, sure. Birds of Prey number 19, written by Christy, Marx, art by Romano, Molenaar. So last issue, Mr. Freeze busted in demanding Strix and then abducted Starling. And then this issue picks up right in that same spot of, hey, give me Strix or else I'll kill Starling. She will know where to go. Have at ye. You have 1 hour. So we open up with that text, and then everyone's like, okay, let's lay out a plan here. What do we do? How do we figure out what's going on? First off, why is Mr. Freeze even interested in the Talons? And they recap that Mr. Freeze developed the technology to basically revive them from being frozen, and he feels like he got gypped, so now he's swearing revenge. And Black Canary's like, okay, whatever. Here's what we're going to do. We are going out to find that. Condor, I want you to stay here and monitor the, radio or whatever. And Condor's like, okay, hold on. I'm getting the vibe you don't trust me. And Canary's like, what? No, I didn't say that. And she's like, all right, I understand that you don't know that much about me, but, I did help you that entire time that you were back there in Japan. So maybe just trust me a little bit. And then Batgirl lays out the whole thing of all right, we know for a fact that you managed to get your wings back even after they're destroyed, which shows that you have some sort of money connections. We also know that based off your accent, you have the some Russian in there. You put on a really strong American accent, but even in your more stressed out moments, you let the tiniest bit slip that you are apparently American Indian. How close am I? And Condor's like, okay, maybe you know a little bit about me, but I still am on your side. And while you were doing your little Nancy Drew thing, Strix walked away. And they look around, it's like, ah, crap, she's going to do this on her own. She can't do it. It's too powerful. We got to go help her. So at that point, Condor's like, I'll fly over the city and see if I can get a lock on her. And Batgirl's like, I'll go on the rooftops to see if I can get a lock on her. And Black Canary says, I'll go get some gear because I can't do those things. So she goes in the locker room and she has a flashback to her time with Kurt, her dead husband, and their time in Team 7 where they were in a sparring match and Canary got the upper hand on Kurt. And Kurt's starting to say wow, I've never been beaten up so badly by, and she's like, oh, by a woman? Huh? You got something against women? And he's like, no, I was going to say by anybody. You did a good job. And then it walks away. And Amanda Waller, who's also on Team 7, was like, hey, seems like you got a little chip on your shoulder. You kind of need to not do that. So she goes and apologizes to Kurt. But as she's doing so, Kurt uses some kung fu whatever to knock her on her ass. And he's like, yeah, no, apology accepted. Why don't we go out to dinner sometime? So then we go back. Condor gets a lock on Strix and tells Batgirl and says, yeah, I don't really know how to talk to her, but you do, so I'm just going to let you handle this because she's not running to Mr. Freeze. She's scared and is running the opposite direction. So Batgirl goes up and sees her just cowering on a rooftop, and she's like, hey, Strix, what you doing? And Strix writes out that it's a bad place and she doesn't want to go back. And she's like, okay, but we really need to save Starling, so can you get it together? And she writes out, okay, yeah, I'll show you. So at that point, Condor is flying Black Canary there while Batgirl and Strix are on a motorcycle. And Black Canary has this moment of, I kind of like being held in the big old muscular arms of Strix here, Condor. And they have a little mild flirting until they arrive, and Strix just kicks in the door of this place. And inside are two Court of Owls scientists. They're Court of Owls scientists because they're wearing the Court of Owls masks, despite the fact that you can't see anything out of those masks. But regardless, they bust in and say, where's Starling? Give us Starling. And they're like, what, you mean the bird? We don't do animal testing. We only operate on people. And he's like, no, Starling is a person. Where is she? And they're like, we don't know what you're doing here, but this is a private lab. Please leave. And then they see Strix there and okay, the failure, the one who sucks so much. That makes sense. And everyone's just kind of looking at each other on the verge of fighting. And they're like, okay, but if Starling isn't here and Mr. Freeze isn't here, why did Mr. Freeze tell us to meet him here? Unless we were just leading him here because he didn't know where it was. And then Mr. Freeze walks in and it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I made you do. You guys are pretty stupid. And so he throws out his freeze gun at Strix, who starts attacking him. She gets frozen solid. Condor comes up in a sneak attack, tackles him, manages to deflect some of the ice. Black Canary does some big moves, and as she's starting to try to get the upper hand on him, she yells out for help. Mr. Freeze yells out for help, and all of a sudden there was a kick to Black Canary's face, and wouldn't you know it, the kick came from Starling. And Black Canary says, "You've gone over to his side?" And she says, "No, sweets, I was always on his side." Dun, dun, dun. Okay, here's the thing. This was one of those fold-out covers, and it's 100% spoiled by the fold-out part of the cover. So to have it as the ending cliffhanger, I mean, I get it, but at the same point, like, if your cover gives it away, is it really a cliffhanger anymore? That being said, I do wonder whether or not this is going to be played straight. Starling is such a, I don't want to say D tier, but that's being generous, character in the DC universe that I could see her just being made a villain and nobody would really care. It's not like Poison Ivy or Harley Quinn or anything. It's Starling. I could see it happening, especially now that they have Batgirl, Strix, and Condor. They could just make a full shift over to a new team. So I don't mind the twist. I don't mind the issue as a whole. I think it's fine. I think we probably should have cut the 2 pages devoted to, oh, Kurt, and then, oh, Condor, to give Strix a little bit more breathing room on, oh, hey, I don't want to go back to the place that brainwashed me and put me in this horrible hellspace of a mindset. Instead, we get 1 page devoted to that, and it's not exactly a good turnaround. So, a little weak there, but overall, art's fine. Everything else, I don't really have a problem with. I mean, it's just kind of an average issue when really all applied together. So, I'm going to give this one a 7, just straight up and out. I don't dislike it, but there's nothing that's really popping out at me either. If they do manage to go full on straight, Starling is a villain, I'm down with that. I'm interested. I would really like to see that play out. But something tells me that this is going to be the sort of thing of issue 21 or 22 is going to be Starling be like, I was just a double agent tricking you into tricking him. So, I don't know. I'm holding out hope, but I don't know for how long. Catwoman number 19, written by Ann Nocenti, art by Rafa Sandoval, Cliff Richards, and Stefano Martino. So, in between issues, Catwoman was inducted into the JLA, and now we're at this issue, because at some point in this issue they say, see Justice League of America number 3 as to how we got here. But that issue is coming out 3 weeks after this issue, so I don't know how we got here. And it doesn't seem to matter anyway. Regardless, we open up, Catwoman is in Arkham Asylum. She lists off just a whole bunch of synonyms for asylum, and then we cut to hours ago at Argus. And we see the JLA, or at least a small portion of them, of Katana, Martian Manhunter, Hawkman, Steve Trevor, and then that weird scientist dude from like 3 issues ago named Darwin. He's here, because why not? And their plan is that the main villain in JLA, the Secret Society, is hard to crack into. So they're going to put Catwoman in there, in the asylum, to hopefully lure out the Secret Society into recruiting her. That's the gist of it. So they say, all right, they don't know that she's a member of the team. We're going to have her thrown in there. She's committing a crime right now, so let's go do that. So she commits a crime. JLA jump in and they say, stop, Catwoman. She's like, make me. Kicks them all in the face until finally they get her all bound up in a straitjacket. And then they deliver her to Arkham and say, hey, don't check her for weapons or anything. We already did that. Just throw her straight into the loony bin. And they're like, all right, cool. We're not going to do extra work if we don't have to. So they drag her down throughout the asylum. And there's all this like torture-looking stuff or whatever to try to scare her into behaving. And then they reach the office of Dr. Jeremiah Arkham. And there's one panel here where he's messing around with like holograms and stuff. And Catwoman says, it's all holograms. The exact words here, it looks like an archaic dungeon, but that's a 3D holographic security schematic on instant feed simulcast. Why in the hell would this ancient ass asylum be full 3D holograms throughout Anyway, regardless, she's brought in and they say, hey Catwoman, I'm really good at dealing with split personality stuff, and you got this weird cat thing going on. I'm going to help you. And so she kicks the pills out of the guy's hand and says, all right, well, now I'm going to be a dick. So I'm going to put you in Supermax. So they drag her down even more hallways, and she's like, this is great. They're giving me a whole tour. I can get out of here, no problem. And she's put in a cell right in between Black Mask and a guy named Vortex, who has the ability to mess with quantum, blah, blah. Just think he's a magnet. That's all you really need. So she's put in her cell, and she starts talking to the guys next to her, convinces Vortex not to take his pills, and Black Mask is like, oh yeah, no, I totally got a way out of here. All you got to do is poke out the eyes of the crow gargoyle. And he's like, okay, I hope that'll be helpful. So then she rips a hole in her straitjacket and starts using her glass cutters on her gloves to get out. Meanwhile, Vortex just uses his powers to destroy the room he's in, because I guess the pills were the only thing that were stopping his powers. And so they both manage to bust out. They take out some guards, but Vortex is too powerful, and he starts to cause a massive disturbance that is threatening to bring down the entire asylum. So Catwoman then jumps on him and says, hey, you got to power down, Vortex. This is too much. And Vortex says, oh, you've awoken the beast. Oh, now you're going to get the horns or whatever. So he starts going full on crazy. All the guards start responding. And as they're dealing with Vortex, Catwoman's like, okay, well, I guess this works. I'll just sneak out while no one's paying attention. But first, and she makes her way into Arkham's headquarters, where Jeremiah is, ties him up in a straitjacket and says, hey, I don't like you. She's not trying to get info from him. She's not trying to blackmail him. She just doesn't like the fact that he's such a pompous ass. And he keeps on saying the thing of you'll be perfect for Operation whatever and the False Face Society and whatnot. And she just keeps on saying, no, you don't know anything about me. And she says oh, you have kleptomania that you can't control, and this is never really about the money. And she says, shut up, you don't know me. Until finally she just knocks him out. And she looks over across the room and sees that crow gargoyle that Black Mask was talking about. She's like, oh, hey, cool. Pokes the eye of it, and all of a sudden a secret trapdoor opens up. And as she jumps down, she lands in this MC Escher-esque, massive underground city full of ancient Greek architecture and vines. And she's like, this is weird, but regardless, I gotta get out of there. And there's someone in the shadows saying, don't leave, it's fun down here, that she doesn't even acknowledge. She's like, oh, I'm not, bye. So then she gets back up to topside and she sees all of these police copters and whatnot arriving at Arkham in order to stop Vortex, I'm assuming, but she's in the middle of it. So one thing I do want to bring up is there's this art issue halfway through the issue. Like I said, she was in a straitjacket, and she just kind of bursts her hand out of it using her claws in order to cut that hole. And then she gets into fights with the guards. But then during the fight with the guards, both of her arms are fully back into the straitjacket, and she's just kicking them all. And then 2 pages later, her arm's back out again, and it's like it was never even a problem. I don't think I really have to describe to you what the problem with that is. You don't put your arm back into the straitjacket. That seems stupid. But regardless, they did it for some reason. So, yeah, I had a few problems with this issue overall. Do I think that the writing is good? It's not the worst it's been. The fact that we spent 3 full pages on Arkham just saying, hey, Catwoman, you might be a little bit crazy. And Catwoman says, what? Me? The woman dressed like a cat who says meow? Never. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying here. I understand that she's supposed to be the protagonist, and to say she's crazy is a little bit out there, but everyone in Arkham is crazy. Everyone in Gotham is crazy. That doesn't seem like a controversial take. I'm gonna go ahead and just lay my name on that one. So yeah, it's a bit tiring. I'm gonna give this one I'm gonna give it a 6. Nope, I'm going to give it a 5.5. 6 just felt bad as I was saying it. I'm going to give it a 5.5. Most of that's for the art. Only some of it's for the fact that at least I'm entertained. Unlike the previous few issues, this had a through line I could follow, however dull it may have been. So we'll see how much this actually ties in with Justice League of America 3. My guess, not a lot. Nightwing number 19, written by Kyle Higgins, art by Brett Booth. So last issue, Nightwing received the news that Tony Zucco, the man who killed his parents, Nightwing's parents, is still alive. And then in some intermediate issue, I think in like Batman or Detective Comics, he decided to go off to Chicago. And this issue picks up with him in Chicago, where he's jumping over some rooftops. We're catching him in media res. He's being chased down by the police. And he's being shot at repeatedly. And as a few of the shots connects with his back, he's like, ow, that really hurt. So he has to tumble down. And I don't even know, like, they're cops, but they're rappelling down from helicopters. And they're like, all right, Mask, get down on your knees. And Nightwing goes, boy, to think I wanted to go to Chicago. Flashback to yesterday. The mayor is opening a rebuilt train line, and he says, oh, we've had a few cyber attacks recently here in Chicago from that no good dirty prankster, but Chicago's bouncing back, so here's a good train line. And we see out in the crowd is Nightwing, and the mayor goes off on this whole long thing about like Chicago does not tolerate vigilantism. No. So he cuts the ribbon, and Nightwing meets up with a guy named Michael, who is basically saying, hey, yeah, Grayson, you're here for the apartment. Yeah, if you're only going to be staying a few weeks, no problem. My roommate's out for a while, so you'll be subletting. Don't worry about rent and all that. We're already squared away off panel. And so he gets the keys, and Nightwing's like, yeah, I lost most of my money because of Amusement Mile burning down, and this was kind of short notice, so I actually have to have a roommate while doing my Nightwing stuff, but I have to find Tony Zucco, blah, blah, blah. And at that point, the train line that's just opened up apparently goes right by his window, so he uses that to get around the city as Nightwing. Cut to elsewhere, some random bar. We get a guy named Hutchinson, Corey. I'm going to call him Corey. Corey is a dude who makes deliveries that contain certain chemicals, and there's a guy named Spade who's basically shaking him down for information. He's threatening him, and he's like, hey, I know all this stuff about your life. I know where your mother lives. I know about your children. I'm going to tell your wife that you're stepping out on her unless you give me the info I need. And Corey's like, oh, here's when the deliveries are made. And then there's a girl that's next to him, all of a sudden jumps up with a knife and has like a schizophrenic split where she's talking to herself and saying, oh, we're going to hurt him a lot. No, we can't hurt him. Oh, but we have to hurt him. Maybe just hurt him a little bit. And she does this for a full page against Spade until Nightwing steps in and was like, okay, you're crazy, aren't you? And so she goes to attack Nightwing. She's got like throwing knives and stuff like that as well, to the point where she throws a drink in Nightwing's face, and Nightwing just runs out. He never deals with her. They never talk about her. They say she's something of a mimic, and then that's it. So anyway, he goes up to the roof, and he talks to Spade, and was like, hey, Spade, I didn't come for whatever that was. I actually came for you. Here you know a lot of info. I'm looking for a guy named Tony Zucco. He's got all these different, like, names or whatever he goes by. And he's like, okay, well, I can look into it, but what's in it for me? And he's like, well, I think that depends on what you find, but just know that I'm able to give you anything you need. So at that point, the cops show up. They say this is the police. We go into the opening sequence, as we already saw. And then we see Dix looking at all the cops and was like, all right, how do I figure out which one to take down based off of who's least likely to shoot me? And he does all this weird, like, oh, this guy's got an accelerated heart rate, and this guy has poor trigger discipline. So he ends up attacking them and taking out all their guns away. And he jumps through the helicopter in order to get to the other side, which messes with the helicopter drivers to the point where the chopper is about to crash. And Dick's like, okay, well, I can't just let that happen. So he gets back into the chopper, pulls out the two drivers, or flyers, pilots, that's the word, and gets them out right before it explodes into the same train line that just opened up that day. So he's like, oh, geez, I was trying to keep a low profile. This isn't good for me. Cut to the mayor getting in a car, talking to his aide, and they're like, oh, there was a tip that Nightwing was going to be there, and we think it came from the prankster. And the mayor's like, prankster, why is he helping us? I mean, whatever, as long as it's against those filthy masks. And the aide says, by the way, we have some leads that he's asking around about a Tony Zuko. Should we put out a APB for him just to keep an eye out before Nightwing gets to him? And the mayor's like, I mean, yeah, sure, do it in the morning. It's not that big of a rush. So then the mayor drives away, and we see the driver of the mayor is Tony Zuko. And I think the mayor is aware of it because he says, and what do you think about all this, Tony? So, yeah, that's a thing. Anyway, the next morning, you'd think that's the final page. It seems like the cliffhanger, but it's not. Because we get this one final thing here of the next morning in the Chicago Steelworks where there's a politician who's been doing some like child trafficking and racketeering. And he's thrown down into this like jigsaw-esque pit. And he's brought this big briefcase of money saying, here it is, I brought it, now you leave me alone. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that yet. There's a lighter down there. Go ahead and light that lighter up. And when the guy lights up the lighter, he sees a wolf in front of him. And he's like, here's the thing. That wolf is afraid of fire. But that lighter is not going to be big enough in order to keep the wolf away. The only way that you're going to be able to do it is if you start burning that money little by little. And I'm going to call the police to come save you in 60 minutes. However, that's only just as much money as you have to keep you alive, so you better start burning it all. And he's like, what? But you said I could buy my life back. And then we see the image of who I'm assuming is the prankster saying, yes, Alderman, and it's up to you how long. Otherwise, where's the prank? Honestly, it doesn't seem like much of a prank to me either. I mean, maybe one of those like YouTube pranks that's not actually a prank. It's just mean. But nah, this is just jigsaw stuff. This is just, oh, you love your money more than anything else. The key is behind your eye. So overall, do I enjoy Nightwing's first outing into Chicago? It's fine. It's not great. It's just there. It's not doing anything that I don't feel like could have been accomplished in Gotham, barring the fact of there's this very top-down, no masks policy, which I guess they couldn't do in Gotham, but I don't know. It seems very... I'm waiting for the reason to see why we're in Chicago, and I don't think this issue is really given it yet. It's just kind of to shake it up and say, hey, we don't really want to do Bloodhaven, but he's out of Gotham. Isn't that what you want Nightwing to have his own city? Now he's got his own city. Despite the fact that he's not really doing a lot of crime stopping yet. He's kind of just focused on the one thing. So we'll see when we get to Nightwing accepting Chicago as his city. Overall, though, the plots are decently set up. The only one I kind of feel iffy about is Prankster, but they could easily turn it into something good very quickly. I just need to know more about them. So I'm going to give this one I'll give it a flat 7. It feels around that range. Not doing anything great, but it's not awful yet. I will say Brett Booth art, especially on the first few pages, but by the time we get to the end where it's more like action fight scene stuff, I'm more okay with it. It's when he's talking to his new roommate that I cringed a little. It's not great. Red Hood and the Outlaws, number 19, written by James Tynion IV, art by Julius Gopez. This isn't Scott Lobdell anymore. This is James Tynion IV, and it will be for a little bit of time. So I'm just going to take this as best as I can. So, last issue we had, I believe, was the whole thing of him coming to terms with Damien's dying, but like he didn't actually know Damien died. It was just this whole thing of, what did the Joker do to me? So this issue picks up in the Himalayas. Apparently, for some reason, he's coming on a first-class Wayne Enterprises jet from Ethiopia, and it says, check out Red Hood and Batman issue 20 for how we got there. So I guess we'll figure that out eventually. But regardless, the plane is attacked by a whole bunch of like mercenaries that are coming from the government of the area or just some local crime lord. And Jason's inside being like, guys, get off my plane. I'm really not in the mood. And they say, oh, well, you give us your money, rich boy. And he's like, oh, you have no idea who you're messing with. Then 2 hours later, the plane is crashed, and we see Roy and Starfire are at the scene just trying to find Jason. And they go over to local townsfolk who have arrived, and they're like, hey, we're superheroes, and we're here looking for a place called the Acres of All, which belong to the All cast, because Jason's probably there. So you guys know anything about that? And they're like, no, no English. Don't talk about that. Bye. So they all leave. Until one little old woman steps up being like, they know, they just don't want to tell outsiders. Like, here's the thing, going to the All Cast is a death sentence. If you try to get to where you're going in those mountains, you will die. And they're like, okay, but we got to try because our friend is out there. So and she specifically says, you need to instill the values of the All Cast in order to find the Acres of All. And so Roy's like, I mean, I've listened to what Jason had to say. I think I can do that. Let's go. And as they leave this woman, she transforms into Essence. And she's like, well, if they're not going to listen to a little old woman, I'll get them to listen in other ways. So 8 hours later, Roy's trudging through snow. And he's remembering things Jason said about how it's about accepting your darkness and making peace with it and like doing good with it. And that's the proper way to do the All Cast. So Roy just keeps repeating that mantra over and over again, accept the darkness, commune with it. And Starfire comes up and is just like, all right, well, I've looked around for miles, and I can't find anything in these hills. And Roy's like, these are the Himalayas. What do you mean hills? These are the biggest mountains we got on Earth. And she's like, that's pathetic. So Roy is apparently getting sick, and he's not doing great. Starfire's like, no, you've got like a fever going on. We need to get you settled up. And Roy's like, no, you don't understand. These past few months, they've been the best of my life working with you guys. I can't just let it all slip away now. I have to find him. And Starfire's like, okay, we'll keep going, but after we take a break. So they go into a cave, and Essence is like, okay, I'm just gonna stop him a little bit. And then the ghost of Dukra, the teacher of Jason, is like, hey, Essence, stop. Like, he's got will in his heart, and this is the whole reason he's able to get as far as he has. He's trying to do something right, and the deep love for his friend is truly what's like necessary here. Don't interfere. And Essence is like, nah, I'm gonna. So she turns into a smoke demon that invades his dreams and is saying like, I'll just give him a nightmare, and that's not a direct interference. If his dreams say to do something, it's like Inception, you know? We're just going to incept him. So they go into his dream, and all these people from Roy's past, which is some Native American man I'm not familiar with, Oliver Queen, Killer Croc, and Hugo Strange, are all basically saying like, oh, you've messed up your life beyond repair. We expected so much better of you. You're not great. And they all start like firing arrows into him. And they just keep taunting him, calling him names, saying he's like the weak link and he threw away his life. And the other two members, they've had their lives stolen from them. But he's just pathetic because he gave it all up. And as they start ganging up on him, he's like, no, I commune with my darkness, and I accept it. And he gets Super Saiyan or whatever. He starts fighting back against them with a golden bow, and he fights them all off. And he's like, there's nothing that's going to stop me from finding my friend. And Essence's essence comes out of Roy. He wakes up, and he's like, oh, God, why does it taste like I smoked a cigar? And he rolls over to Starfire and says like, hey, I know where the entrance is. I've seen it in my dream. I know where I can find Jason. And he just points over to the face of this mountain, and Starfire picks him up and is just like, if I'm about to fly face first into a mountain, I'm going to kill you. He's like, that is completely fair. But they fly through a portal that ends them up in the Acres of All. And they're like, all right, cool. That was the hard part, is getting here, right? Like, we can find Jason easy in here. And they're immediately met by, as far as I can describe them, as Triceratop wolves. They are immediately attacked. They start a fight scene where Starfire's blasting them and Roy's firing off like foam arrows so they can't bite down. Then this huge one shows up that they're no match for, but its head is immediately lopped off by Jason. And he's like, hey, this place is dangerous. You and your friend get out of here. And they're like, what? Dude, we just went through hell to get to you. Come on, man. We want to know what's going on. We're here to help you. And he's like, I don't know who you people are. And they're like, okay, funny, but like, seriously though. He's like, no, seriously though. You're calling me Jason. I mean, I think that sounds right, but like, I don't know. It's not ringing any bells for me. And they're like, what happened to you, man? And then Saru from issue 3 shows up, and he's like, hey guys, I have the ability to take memories. Do you remember me? I did that. And they're like, well, what do you do to him? And he's like, no, it's what he asked me to do. And apparently Jason showed up to Saru and was like, here's the thing. The previous few issues have made me think that the Joker has influenced not only the worst parts of my life, but also recent times. Like, he's turned me into me. And if that's true, I can't live with that anymore. I can't live with the knowledge of Joker influencing my life. So I want you to take away everything in my memories that he has touched or that his influence has any part of at all. And so he's like, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do this. And he takes all of Jason's memories away. And that's it. That's where the issue ends. Is now we're going to figure out exactly what Jason has been up to, maybe, I guess, or what type of person Jason is. Here's the thing. This is a new writer. This is James Tynion popping in on what Scott Lobdell has exclusively been doing for about 2 years now. I appreciate that. I appreciate you wanting to come in and say, all right, clearly there's been a lot of stuff going on with Jason. We're just going to wipe the slate clean, and then we're going to explicitly just drip feed into here's what new Jason is. This issue was getting into here's what Roy is. Here's what drives him. Here's his motivation. All that stuff, great. I think my biggest issue with starting this run is that he's still beholden to all of the old stuff. The fact that we have Essence running around doing whatever it is Essence is doing. I don't at no point do they say Essence wants to stop them from getting to the Allcast because it's just a thing of, no, we just expect her to not want them to get there because. So yeah, I think that the weakest part is what has been forced to be carried over. I would have much rather they just said, oh yeah, Red Hood, he's now just a guy in, I don't know, Detroit, doing whatever he wants to do. Like, we never make reference to this all-cast stuff again. I would have been totally cool with that, but I appreciate him at least attempting to go back and explain, here's what we're doing with the characters and here's how they work. We're going to get ourselves reemerged because it's gotten a little bit sloppy. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 7.5, if I'm being honest. I think I'm excited for the new stuff, while I'm just a little bit skeptical of how much are we actually going to be able to wipe the slate clean. So, 7.5. Supergirl number 19, written by Mike Johnson, art by Mahmud Asrar. So last issue, Supergirl has kryptonite poisoning. It's kind of knocking her out a little bit, and it also, for some reason, is knocking out Karen Starr, aka Power Girl. We end the issue last time with Supergirl being abducted by the military, ? Someone named General Garrison wanted to get his hands on her. So we pick up this issue with her having flashbacks to Hell on Earth and how that all happened. And then we see that she's already put into a little container thing to be loaded up, and they're like, oh my god, she's just like a girl and she's already this powerful. Can you imagine what she would be like if she were grown up? And then all of a sudden Power Girl just busts in and grabs her and says like, okay, I had some visions, I kind of passed out a little bit, but now I'm here and I think I really need to protect Kara, myself, her, me. I don't know proper pronouns for this, but regardless, I'm here and I'm going to save her. And it looks like she's kind of poisoned. So she rips off the lid. Supergirl kind of comes to. And as they touch hands briefly, they can see each other's memories. So Supergirl gets all these memories of Power Girl on Earth 2 and all of that stuff. Whereas Power Girl gets all the memories of Supergirl with like all the stuff she basically done in her series up until this point. And they're like, wait, we're not different. We're different, but same. So at that point, Supergirl gets a little bit healed up. She's like, oh, my poisoning, it's falling away. As the military comes in and starts firing at them. And the pair of them are just like, all right, well, you know what comes next. And they just start punching their way through all this military stuff. I do want to point out a little tiny thing here. Last issue, and I double checked, it said General Garrison. This issue opens up, it says General Morrison. I doubt we're ever going to meet either of them, but the fact they gave him a name and then mixed it up the very next issue, it doesn't feel like it should be that way. You could just check. You have the script. Anyway, regardless, after they punch through all the military stuff, the giant brute guy from Lex's telepathic meeting room, boardroom, whatever, shows up and he's like, hello, my name is Apex and I am here to test you. If you beat me, then that will be you succeeding in the test. But even if I defeat you, I will get information I need. Here we go. And so he starts attacking the both of them. They both get the upper hand on him like pretty quick. And we see inside Lex's techno-organic headquarters. They call it the hub. I'm not going to call it that. Inside his little boardroom, they're all like, okay, Apex, shut up. Stop talking to them. Actually fight. This is supposed to be a test of their brute strength. And the one that looks like Brainiac, Alfina, is just like, oh, you shouldn't have sent a brute in to do a woman's job. Lex is like, hey, shut up. You'll have your turn. Let's just see how he does. So he managed to get the upper hand on them just for a second by like bashing their heads together and just like, oh, this is a test of your combined strength. Don't let me down. And so they both collapse to the ground and then they're like, Kara, yeah, Kara, 3, 2, and then they both do a sure you can uppercut on the guy, sending him like way out. And at that point, Power Girl's suit has been destroyed because she cannot go literally one panel without having her suit destroyed. And Supergirl has fallen ill to the kryptonite poisoning again. And she's like, sanctuary. And Power Girl's like, oh, wait, I've got your memories. I know where that is. I'll get you there. So they fly away. And Apex is like, all right, well, she's flying away at like Mach 5. I can't really catch up to that. And Lex is like, that's pathetic. Get back here now. So we see Power Girl diving into the Atlantic Ocean or Pacific, wherever it is, and walking into Sanctuary. And Sanctuary is like, hello, Kara. And also, Kara, I detect that you are dangerously weak. I will stabilize your vitals. And Power Girl roams the Sanctuary for a while. And she's like, oh, geez, well, I wish I had a new outfit. And the system's like, oh, preparing a new costume for you. And it's just it's the original Power Girl outfit. It's got the boob window. And she's like, yeah, this works just fine. And all I can think is, I'm pretty sure we went through at least 2 issues of World's Finest where you said specifically that wasn't fine, but I guess editorial got to you. So at that point, Supergirl wakes up and says, you look beautiful. All of you. And they're saying, oh, yes, well, are you okay? And Supergirl says, the poison's still in my system, but at least I'm able to, like, be up and around. And they say they'll find a cure together, but then all of a sudden Sanctuary goes off and just like, oh, hold on. There's 2 of you? Well, the only explanation for that is one of you is a clone. And we all know how Kryptonians feel about clones, so I'm going to destroy whichever one of you is a clone. So that's the cliffhanger. Overall, I like it. I like the fact that these two met up, and the mind melding thing going on basically took care of the whole, oh, but you're me, but I'm you. But how is this possible? It's just, no, we see it, it happens, and we move on. We don't have to waste time on the, oh, but how sort of thing. And I appreciate the fact that they also work well together. We're not getting this sort of thing of, oh, you're me, but you can't take my life. I'm the only real me there is. Like, maybe we'll get that, considering that we're going into this weird, like, clone angle. But I think it's going to be more that they work together to stop what is essentially the HAL 9000 from attacking them. So I'm interested. I like the setup here. The fact we got classic Power Girl outfit doesn't really matter to me. I wasn't attached to it. I also think the other one is fine. I just want them to stop. I don't want to sound like prudish, but like, you're sexualizing her for no reason. It's not even a thing where like you're putting her into obviously like cheesecake poses. There's nothing. It's just the fact that she's in skimpy clothing every time. Stop it. It's lazy at this point. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'm going to give it a 7.5. I really did like it. I think it's good. Again, it's just a little bit, the Lex stuff is the part that's like falling down for me. I don't think that they've really fleshed out as to why Lex is interested in Supergirl more so than Superman, or who this techno-organic hub is. It's just a little bit weak in that regard. But everything else I like, so 7.5. DC Universe Presents number 19, written by Tony Bedard, art by Javier Piña. So, back in Sword of Sorcery numbers 1 through 4, there was a backup story that focused on Beowulf. This is that story. Beowulf is the main feature here. So we open up on a Professor Gwendolyn Pierce, who is working on some museum stuff, and she's like, all right, I got this magic ball thing here called the Torque that apparently is negative 300 years old according to carbon dating, which that's not how carbon dating works, but regardless, she says, I want to figure out how old it is, so I'm going to use spectrometry. So firing the laser in 3, 2, 1, and then all of a sudden it lights up, and this huge, disgusting, fleshy beast pops out and tackles her to the ground. And as she screams out, "Don't hurt me," it very quickly transforms to look like her. And she's like, okay, that's weird. And then all of a sudden the ball lights up again, and Beowulf pops out wielding his magic sword. And Gwendolyn's like, oh, stop, that monster just stole my face. And at that point Beowulf's like, okay, but like, how do I know you're not the monster? And he does some retinal scans or whatever, and then sniffs her and just like, okay, you don't smell like the puka, which apparently it's an Irish boogeyman or something like that can shapeshift. She's like, all right, but you smell like a human, but you're wearing like sorceress outfits. And she's like, what are you talking to? Who are you? And he's like, oh, I'm Beowulf. And he's like, that's a poem. Why are you named after a poem? And he's like, oh, I know nothing of poetry. Anyway, gotta go take care of that thing. And they walk out into the main room of this museum, and Beowulf is immediately overwhelmed by like the dinosaur skeleton. And apparently there's a thing going on of the Age of Heroes. So there's a bunch of superhero stuff on every panel as well. And so at that point, we see the monster running out into the street and sees more stuff of like the Justice League, and runs over to a policeman and is just like, tell me, Sentry, what year is this? And he's like, just get your hands off me, I don't answer to you. And then it transforms into Superman and be like, now I am your God King, answer my question. So Beowulf then goes out with Gwendolyn and says, yeah, no, this is New York City. Like, this is modern day. I don't know what to tell you. And Beowulf just says, oh, New York City fell in the 21st century. It's been that way for 300 years now. And it's like, oh, well, that's deeply concerning, and I'd like some more information about it. But you said your name was Beowulf, and like, tell me more about you. And he's like, oh, well, I come from the Dane Law. And he basically gives the entire history of what the backup story was that he originally was introduced. He's like, yes, I came from this place, and I may have been made by this monster or something like that, and I made a friend called Wiglaf, and it's a whole thing. Regardless, though, apparently after that story ended, the sorceress that made the Grendel then escaped and made another monster, and that monster had shape-shifting abilities. It turned into Wiglaf, tried to poison Beowulf. Beowulf caught it, and then chased it away into a trap that the mother set, and that was the orb thing. And the orb thing then sent them back in time. And so Gwendolyn's like, okay, I guess I understand all that. Please don't kill anybody, though. And then we see the Pika? I don't know. I'm going to say Puka. The Puka has made its way to a fountain where it's transformed into Aquaman, being like, I am a king. Why don't you listen to me? Why does nobody listen to me in this era? Do you have no respect for monarchy? And it transforms into Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman's like, oh, you fools, I'm not the danger here. And then Beowulf shows up and is like, nope, I am. So they start to get into a sword fight, and Gwendolyn's like, I probably should leave now, but I am so curious about what's going on here. And we see that the sword, because the sword was made from the shape-shifting ability of Puka, it's still a part of it, so it's able to be cut through. He transforms into Batman and just says, oh, Beowulf, I was also led into this trap. I don't want to be subservient to my monster, or my mother who would trick me. We could rule this era of heroes together. We are so much stronger than them. And Beowulf's like, no. And he just cuts through the Puka, saying, I am no hero and you are dead. So at that point, the cops finally arrive, and Gwendolyn's like, it's okay, officers. He's a hero. Okay, I mean, just roll with it. And also, he killed that monster thing. And a officer comes up on horseback saying like, oh, what happened here? And Beowulf just looks at his horse, and it's just 3 minutes later. Beowulf and Gwendolyn are riding away on the horse. And Gwendolyn's like, okay, the cops are going to find the horse soon enough. We don't have much time. I got to get him back to his era. And she says like, oh, I'm just going to reverse the polarity on the spectrometer and blah, blah, blah. And Beowulf doesn't understand it either, but he's like, hey, do whatever you got to do. Just get me home. And she reverses it and sends him back into the Danelands. And as he gets there, she's like, that was the first really exciting thing that's happened to me in such a long time. I know I'm totally crazy, but... And then we see Beowulf looking back at the ball of light as Gwendolyn arrives in the Danelands. And she's like, well, I'm here now. Show me around town. And we see that there's this giant acid-spitting griffin that's attacking the castle nearby. And he's like, well, let me give you the tour. So here's the thing. I really liked the Beowulf story in the backup. I thought it was extremely well done. I think this keeps it up. I'm pretty sure Tony Bedard wrote the original as well, so it makes sense he came back for this. But I really do enjoy this extra little bit on it. It's taking the original story, it's elaborating on it. It's not just overwriting old stuff. And then it leaves off on this cliffhanger that allows you to do a whole new story out of it. Mind you, they don't. I don't think he ever pops up again. But they could have, and I really do appreciate the mythology that they laid down in the original series. So this is only expanding on it, where you're going to have this idea of it's an old-timey-ish world, so Gwendolyn's going to have some like science stuff she can bring to it, but it's still set in the future, so it's not like she's able to just predict events before they happen. I like it. I like the idea of it. I wish they would have moved forward with it more. So overall, I'm going to give this issue, I'm going to give it like an 8. In fact, I'm going to give it an 8.5. I think the art's good. I think it does a solid job of being standalone while also elaborating on this character already. It's a solid issue throughout. So 8.5 for Beowulf and the final issue of DC Universe Presents. Justice League number 19, written by Geoff Johns, art by Ivan Reis. So last issue, the Justice League decided to admit 3 new members of the Atom, Firestorm, and Element Woman. And this issue gets to that, but first we pick up in the Batcave where Red Hood Jason Todd is talking to Alfred, and they basically want to set up one of those memorial tubes that Jason got for his costume, but for Damian's costume. And Alfred's just trying to be like, oh, look, Bruce really needs this. We really should do this for him. And Jason's like, I mean, it's different than when I died. I was just another Robin. I'm not his biological son. And Alfred's like, no, it hit him hard. Even if you don't think it did, you dying hit him hard. And Alfred starts crying and whatnot. And then they both get attacked by some dude in like kinda Batman gear. He's got a utility belt and everything. And he takes out Red Hood with an electric shock. And then Alfred, he just kind of like choke slams down to the ground. But before that, Alfred's like, Batman will find you. And he's like, yeah, I hope so. So then this guy makes his way deeper into the cave. And he bypasses a handprint scanner. And not by like hacking it. He just lets him in. And he makes his way deeper and deeper, past a retinal scan as well that lets him in, until finally he gets to this chest that contains boxes with all of the Justice Leaguers' symbols on them. And he takes the one for Superman and cracks it open, and a green glow is coming out of the box. But first, before we deal with that, we're going to cut over to a horde of apes riding on boars in like a fantasy setting. And we see the Atom. He is also riding on a horse, charging into the battle, saying, all right, everybody, attack. And she's got a frost sword on her, and then all of a sudden, her alarm starts going off. And she's like, it can't be 10 o'clock already. I gotta go, guys. I got a meeting. And everyone's like, what? No, we just started our raid. Come on, Atom. You gotta stay in here with us, or else we'll die. And she's like, sorry, gotta go. And she leaves the game, but seemingly she literally shrunk down into the game. Like we see her jumping out of the computer screen. I don't get this one. This one's a bit beyond me, is that she was actually physically in the game, it seems. Anyway, she puts on her costume and she's like, all right, let's go. So she teleports up to the watchtower, but nobody is there to greet her, save for Firestorm, who's just having an argument with himself at the central table. And Adam walks up like, hey, who are you talking to? He's like, not important. Do you know where everyone is? And they're like, nah, did we get the wrong date? It's not like Superman to forget. I don't think he actually is able to forget. And then we cut down to Kahndaq. And there's a whole hostage situation going on between the military and a cultist group called the Sons of Adam, and they are threatening to kill a hostage to show that they don't negotiate. But one of the people points out, like, wait a minute, hold on, we took 8 hostages and now there are 10. What the heck's going on around here? And then one of the hostages stands up, and turns out it's Wonder Woman. She throws a punch, takes out the main guy, and then Superman reveals himself as another one who heat visions their guns away and then helps free all the hostages. So cut back to the Batcave. We see Batman and Cyborg down there doing some analyzing. Red Hood's there, and he's like, I should have heard the guy coming. I'm sorry, I know I'm a disappointment. He's like, Jason, it's cool. It's whatever. Just go do your thing. So Cyborg's then like, yeah, no, this guy was like really prepared. He was giving off an EMP the whole time, so none of the cameras picked him up. He also wasn't like a cyborg or anything. He only weighed 180 pounds, so he's probably human. Aquaman comes up from the river beneath and is like, well, he didn't swim through the currents because that would have killed him. So whoever this guy is, he knew how to get in here and he was very good at it. But what was he even after? Because like he didn't even access the computers. What's going on here? And Batman's like, I don't know. Hey, Cyborg, you got anything? And all of a sudden Cyborg gets this pop-up window of Superman and Wonder Woman causing international tensions by being the first Americans to cross into Kahndaq in like a decade. And Batman's like, okay, I need you to teleport me to them now. And we see they're up at some old ruins or something like that in Kahndaq, and they're like, man, this place is pretty cool. And Wonder Woman's basically, Clark, we could just save the whole country. Like, we could just get in there and like impose our will and make this place totally cool again. And nobody could stop us. And Clark's like, no, it's not up to us to change the world. We inspire. We don't interfere. And she's like, right. But like, we could at least do things of like giving the hostages like water and aid and like doing things that the world stage is not doing for them. We could save them. Or better yet, saying specifically the line, nothing can stop us. And Batman's like, okay, you don't say that ever again. And he just pops up behind him because that's what supervillains say. And they're like, how in the world did you get in here? We both have some level of super hearing. He's like, oh, Cyborg, he has a silent mode now. Anyway, I need to talk to you guys in private. Here's the thing. We could have gone in on a stealth mission. We could have done this stealthily. But like when you guys are doing things together in public, you represent the Justice League. Individually, yeah, do what you want. But in public, together, you're the Justice League. And you are making it so much harder for us to do things if you're going to keep on getting us in hot water on the world stage. And Superman's like, look, you know we didn't intend on this being a whole thing. Like, we're friends, Bruce. And he's like, right. And as a friend, I need to tell you, I know about you too. I know you guys are a couple. I don't care. Like, so be it. If that's, I'm happy you guys have found each other. Nobody else on the league knows, I think. But you guys are spending a lot more time together, so they'll probably piece it together. But here's the thing. People in the world are not going to feel as happy for you as I do, because they're going to think that you two are like a marriage of super gods that are watching over the world, and you're going to do stuff. And they're like, who will? Who's going to do that? And he's like, well, somebody broke into my cave, and they didn't do it to get back at me. They did it to get back at you, Superman. And immediately Wonder Woman's like, what? What do you mean get back at? Do you have something that could hurt Superman, Batman? What did you do? And then at that point, we cut back to Firestorm and the Atom on the Watchtower. And basically, they're just walking around, looking around, seeing if they can find anybody, or at the very least, a bathroom. And at that point, there is a super loud boom. And they tumble to the ground, and then they look up. They see this creature with a fin on his head and 3 eyes come out saying, who are you? Where's the Justice League? Tell me, or else I will tear it from your minds and then feast on your flesh. Now, I know that this is Despero, is the name of the character, but they don't say that yet. This is just a new character that we are going to see more of. So, I like this issue. This is pretty much set up. This is just going into the next arc, what all is going to be happening. Last issue was getting the new characters involved, and in that regard, this is the second issue of that. But, I mean, couldn't you just see that entire plot of the Atom coming out of the video game and like having to go up there and only Firestorm's working? Like, that is the opening to an episode if this were adapted directly to TV. Like, can't you see that? So I'm going to say this is the beginning of the arc. In terms of the international stuff, I'm liking that. It's laying down some solid groundwork of, you know, gods and men. Are these people like doing, yes, they're doing good, but are they causing more harm than good in terms of public perception? And I do like that little back and forth there of these, because if there were a bunch of superpowered people, I don't think that they would be trusted implicitly. I don't like when this series is diving into that. So I like the little talk between the Trinity. I liked it all. Solid issue throughout. I can't really find anything that I dislike, so I'm going to give this one, I'm going to give it an 8.5. And the only reason it doesn't get up to 9 is just it doesn't have that extra little oomph factor to get it there. But it is a definitely solid issue. Art looks great. And I look forward to seeing who this character is that managed to overcome all of Batman's defenses. Justice League of America's Vibe number 3, written by Sterling Gates, art by Pete Woods and Fabiano Neves. So last issue, we had Amanda Waller basically saying, hey, Vibe is our answer to Flash if the Justice League ever goes crazy, but we need to test him first, so put him up against Kid Flash. This issue picks up with Vibe out on patrol. He's on the phone with his brother, who's basically telling him, like, look, just come home for dinner, man. Like, you don't need to be out there. And he's like, no, I'm on the Justice League now. I got to do patrol. He's like, okay, fine. Where are you patrolling? He's like, oh, I'm on top of the Gimlin building. And he's like, that building is 12 stories tall. And he's like, yeah, no, I got a great vantage point. And the brother's like, okay, so let's say you see something. You can't fly. How do you get down to it? And Vibe's like, I take the stairs. Okay, point taken. I'm going downstairs. So, cut back to Argus, where Agent Gunn is talking to Waller, and basically, Waller's just chewing him out like, are we ever going to get a hold on this guy? Because he keeps on telling his brother literally everything. And Gunn's like, that cat's out of the bag. Just let them keep it between each other. As long as we keep an eye on both of them, the identity will be fine. No big deal. And Gunn brings up issues of, I don't think he's ready. He's only been on 2 field missions and shaken hands with the president. And Waller's like, well, that's why we're going to test him out. So we're going to put him up against Kid Flash. So let's go. Then we see Cisco out on the streets, still talking to his brother. And his brother's like, look, hey, seriously, I don't want to have to lie to Dad. I mean, I lie to Dad all the time about my stuff, but like, I don't want to have to lie about your stuff too. So how about you just get back here already? And then Vibe receives a heads up from Agent Gunn saying, hey, confirm that you're here. We're ready to go. We're going to send a chopper to your location. And he's like, oh yeah, no, I'm here. Cool. Anyway, I got a mission. Got to go, Dante. So he hops on this chopper, and the chopper basically says, here's the thing. We got a lock on Kid Flash. We think he is a thief and an arsonist, and we think he might be a breacher from another dimension. He has nothing to do with Flash as far as we could tell. He just named himself after him. But that's why we need you in order to track him down. We know he's somewhere in New York, so use your powers to tell us exactly where he is. So they land in basically Times Square, which seems the exact opposite of not being seen. But regardless, they come down, and Vibe immediately feels something. He's like, oh, it's beneath us. It's down in the subways. We got to go. And Gunn shuts down a couple of the subway tunnels and is like, all right, let's go down. We're trusting you to lead us, Vibe. And they start connecting with Gunn. And he's like, so how long you been with Argus? And he's like, oh, I've been here since it started. I was with the CIA before that. He's like, cool. You have a family? He's like, yeah, I used to have a daughter. And Vibe's like, oh, all right. Well, I put my foot in it. Let's go. So they make their way down the tunnel a little bit, and then all of a sudden, the detail that's on the squad just starts being picked off like one member at a time. And they have a special bullet that absorbs kinetic energy or something, and they start firing it wildly, which eventually causes Kid Flash to be, he yells out like, oh, leave me alone, I don't want to be around. And Vibe ends up getting a visual on him, and he sees him, but he looks different. He's like, this guy isn't a breacher, or at least he looks different than the other breachers. And Kid Flash starts running towards them, so he uses his energy. And it manages to stop Kid Flash dead in his tracks for just a second. And Kid Flash gets up, he's like, who are you? What are you doing to me? And he just runs off the opposite direction. And Vibe starts chasing him down, and Gunn's like, all right, sounds good, but don't engage him. Like, he's very capable. You just need to track him down. He's like, right, totally cool. You're breaking up. I'm going to engage. And Gunn's like, okay, whatever. Kid, you... So at that point, Kid Flash catches up to him. And as they touch, they have the Cisco get a vision of Flash's history. And he sees, like, how he was on the run from the law and he was put on trial for something. And then they separate. And when they separate, there's a big burst of energy that affects the Detroit headquarters. Like, all of their machinery starts going off. And Waller's like, hey, are we offline in Detroit? And they're like, yeah, something happened. We don't know what. And he's like, okay, we'll get it back online now. So at that point, Cisco tries to relate to Kid Flash. He's like, wait a minute, hold on. I saw something. I saw where you came from. You were in, like, the Earth's future? What's going on? And then Kid Flash just runs away. But Vibe manages to pin him down with one of the vibrational attacks. And at that point, Kid Flash says, like, oh, well, if I were you, I'd move. And he's like, what do you mean? And then all of a sudden the subway comes through and nearly hits Cisco. So, point being, he follows Kid Flash through the subway tunnels. Waller's just now getting back visuals. And he sees Kid Flash, and he arrived in, like, it's, you know, in Terminator, how, like, it cuts out a hole of the space. It's that, except with the Flash symbol on it. And he's like, oh, hey, did you do this? And he goes to reach out for Kid Flash, and he's like, hey, no, stop running away from me. I'm good. I'm here to help you. So Kid Flash comes down here, and he was searching for this place because he had a dream about it. And then Argus interrupted, and he's like, look, I can help you find the answers that you're looking for. If I concentrate, I can maybe feel through your timeline again, and we can see what's going on again. And then someone from, like, an analytical side of things in Argus is like, Director Waller, we're kind of doing the math here, and we're not sure of it, but if they touch for, like, too long of a time, it's possible that they will destroy all of space-time. So at that point, Waller's like, okay, I guess that's worth canceling the mission. So he sends in Vibe to shut it down. But at that point, Vibe is already reaching out his hand to touch Kid Flash on the shoulder. It causes a huge disruption at the Detroit facility, and Kid Flash is like, dude, stop touching. What is your thing with touching? You are part of the bad guys. You work with Argus. I don't want you to know my history anymore because of that. So get out of my way, and I didn't ask for your help. And he runs away, and that's when Gunn arrives and collects Cisco. So then Gunn's talking to Waller later on, and Waller's like, yeah, no, the kid's not in as much trouble as he thinks he is, because all of that stuff actually gave us a lot of good information on not only how his powers work and his own psych profile, but also on how the Flash's power works. And now Waller is aware of the Speed Force and a basic mapping of how the energy works. But then we see that during all of the stuff, all of the power being disrupted, Gypsy, inside of her little containment thing, has her power dampeners deactivated. So she shapeshifts into a guard. Another guard comes up being like, how'd you get in there, man? And he's like, I don't know, let me out. And then the guard frees Gypsy. So that's an issue right away. And then we cut back to the Ramon family home, where Cisco's just recounting the day to Dante. And it's like, I'm not part of the bad guys, am I? And Dante's like, you are part of a super secret government organization who kind of just picked you up off the street and forced you to fight things they're telling you to fight. You might be part of the bad guys. And he's like, okay, but they have a Justice League. Aren't Justice League always good guys? And then at that point, before they can really talk into it that much, a voice and a light appears from behind them of some dude. I have no idea who this is, but he says, all right, Cisco, it's time for you to start asking the right questions, and if you don't, you'll die just like all the others. So I don't know who the dude is. Overall, I think this is a good development. I like the fact that we are splitting away from Justice League of America after those first two issues. Sterling Gate seems to be going on this own path, where I'm sure that we'll have mild crossovers throughout, but it is, at this point, uniquely its own thing of developing up Cisco as his own character and how he reacts to these things, and obviously how he's going to react to the shadowy government organization telling him to do stuff. So overall, I'm a fan. I'm enjoying it right now. I will say it is kind of lagging in development of Cisco. I think that they really need to focus more on his own personal stuff rather than just, here's what Argus is saying to do this week. I would like there to be, him spending an issue on leave and him still trying to be a superhero and just not doing great, or maybe succeeding in his own way. I want to see that more than I want to see, oh, here's what Argus says you have to do this time. It's a tie-in to Teen Titans. So overall, I'm going to give it I'll give it a flat 7, but I think there is potential here, and I look forward to seeing them reach it. Wonder Woman number 19, written by Brian Azzarello, art by Tony Atkins and Goran Sudzuka. So last issue, the baby ended up in the hands of Wonder Woman. They finally got it. War's on their side, Orion's on their side, and yeah, just happy ending more or less. This issue picks up in Olympus with Artemis and Dionysus just hanging out, having some drinks, talking about Apollo, saying how he's still working, whereas Zeus was kind of just like, I'm entitled to everything and it's all mine. Apollo, as head of Olympus, is like, no, I have to work to keep this, and I'm going to keep doing so. So he gets back from work. He gets a drink from Dionysus and basically says, all right, so what's the deal? And Dionysus says all the stuff of, wars with them. They've got a new god and the baby's there, possibly the child of prophecy. So, yeah, a lot of big deals. And then we cut to London, where the whole good guy crew is just walking the streets, trying to pick out a name for the baby. And we have names thrown around like Reggie and Nigel. Zola ends up asking War, and War's like, how about Jack or Daniel? Because those are the only two I'm interested in, excuse me, as he makes his way to the bar. Wonder Woman throws out Steve, which Zola throws her some side-eye for. Be like, nah, we're not going to name him Steve. And then she passes the baby over to Hera, which Hera's like, oh, this gross little thing. Yeah, I could see Nigel. Nigel works. And then Zola throws out the name Zeke. which Orion steps up and is just like, yeah, Zeke. Zeke's like a strong sounding name. It's like a noise, like it's fast. Like Zeke works. So it sounds like they've all decided that the name of the baby is going to be Zeke. Wonder Woman goes over to talk to War. And War's like, you have changed. And she's like, all right, you're going to insult me every time I walk over. He's like, no. I'm saying it as a compliment this time. Like, look at them. There's a new god, an old god, and a woman who's like, baby is targeted by both of them. And yet you've all got them playing together. That's a sign of a strong leader. You've done well. And at that point, God, I can't believe I forgot his name. But the other brother, the one who's like stone powered or whatever like that, it'll come to me. He steps up and he's like, hey, by the way, if we're discussing Diana's little army here, I'm going to resign. So there's an intercut story here all about the firstborn. I'll get to it in the end. But cutting back to Lennox, that's his name. Lennox saying he's resigning. He's like, yeah, no, I'm used to operating alone, and I'm usually the alpha dog, as he looks over to Orion. And Orion's like, fine, whatever, go. Like, you're not going to convince him to stay Wonder Woman. His brain is literally made of stone. Besides, he's your brother. It's creepy. And he's like, what do you mean it's creepy? And I was like, for the less merrier things, as Orion winks at Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman's, you know what? Orion, you've been laying out some heavy innuendos. So, you know what? I don't have time to waste on you. And she leans in and gives Orion a kiss, and Orion is shocked, but then immediately reciprocates. And then we see him scream out, and Wonder Woman's like, now I can live with your disrespect, but I've got my hand on something that I don't think you can live without. So are you really prepared to lose them if you're going to keep disrespecting me? And Orion's like, fine, I get it. So Wonder Woman is about to storm off, and Orion can't help but throw in an extra, you really look cute when you're mad. To which point Wonder Woman throws around and just decks Orion in the face. And at this point, he gets angry. His face starts to change into this like more hideous form. And he goes and attacks Lennox, who was laughing at him. And Lennox is like, oh, geez, what happened to your face, man? And at that point, Orion says, like, you know what? Think you had the right idea. And he grabs his scooter thing and he just zooms off. So that's that plot. Meanwhile, the firstborn stuff, him and the doctor lady, Cassandra, they wake up in the belly of Poseidon. And it's like, all right, well, we'll get out of this piece of crap somehow. And then the like vision of Poseidon, or maybe the true form, hard to say, shows up in front of him. He's just like, hey, you're the piece of crap. Don't talk about me like that. And basically tells him, all right, here's the deal. We're going to make a bargain. And I know you're here to get your weapon out of my stomach because I swallowed it. But here's the thing. I'll give it to you if you promise to keep your war to strictly heaven. Hell and the earth are off limits. You only go for Olympus. And Poseidon and Hades will keep their respective thrones. And immediately the firstborn starts tearing off like these crab legs off of some guards nearby, just breaking them across their heads, grabbing the sword anyway, and holding it to Poseidon's throat and saying, no, and you better tell hell that's what I said. So then we go back into the belly after a little bit more of the story, and he's like, all right, here's the thing. If you want to kill me, go for it. Like, it's not going to make a difference, but I'm not the one who's out of his depths here. You most certainly are. So go ahead, slit your own palm. We'll make our oath in blood, and I'll give you what you need to know. So the firstborn realizes he needs to, and he's like, all right, cool, there you go. So you get the sword as my part of the bargain, and as Hell's part of the bargain, he's going to release your armies of abominations back into the earth for you to control. And firstborn's like, okay, you want to, I'll take Olympus. I will rule it alone. He's like, yeah, here's the thing, though. Apollo is currently in charge, not Zeus, so you're going to have to take him on. Apollo is stronger than you, which is going to be an issue. And there's this prophecy thing where you're not going to take the throne unless you have the lastborn as well. He's like, what do you mean lastborn? That wasn't part of the prophecy. He's like, yeah, that prophecy was made 7,000 years ago. We've had a few prophecies in the meantime. Lastborn's going to be needed. And currently it's in the hands of War and Wonder Woman and a couple other children of Zeus. And he's like, all right, fine. Tell me where this kid is, and I will no longer have any sort of rival. And Poseidon's like, there you go. Now you're getting the gist of it. So we get one little page up here of Artemis, Apollo, and them, and they're kind of debating what the prophecy means and whether or not they have the ability to stand up against Wonder Woman. Artemis is pretty sure through her training and whatnot, Wonder Woman's not going to get the upper hand again. But they also don't think that the prophecy may most definitely mean that they're coming for Apollo. It could mean that Artemis is being killed. It could mean any number of things. So at this point, the Firstborn's on his way to get Zeke. Hades is talking to Poseidon, and they're basically making a bet as to whether or not Firstborn's going to be successful. Hades thinks that Poseidon thinks that Apollo will destroy the Firstborn, that there's no way that he's going to be able to stand up to Apollo. Meanwhile, Hades thinks that Wonder Woman is going to be the one that beats him back. And Poseidon's like, nah, she doesn't even know the game she's playing yet. And I'm not going to bet against that. And then the final page we see here is Artemis coming to basically abduct the baby again. So, yeah, a lot going on in this issue. We're basically redirecting the Firstborn to get more directly involved in the plot. Lennox may or may not be out. We see that while Apollo is not directly involved, he is still coming after the baby. It wasn't just a thing of, okay, well, it's not my problem. It's a thing of, no, he is still actively after it. So there's a lot of things. I did get the feeling with the last issue, it was kind of just the end of like the first act or maybe even the second act. This feels like beginning the next one. It feels like, all right, we've got new players on the board. We have new reasons to go after the baby, new people defending him. It's a whole lot of interest going on, and I'm intrigued in it. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'll give it a flat 8. I think because it was setting up so many pieces, it is lacking just a little bit to get it that 8.5, but it's still super good. I am very much enjoying Azraella's run on this. So we'll see how much of a threat the Firstborn actually is next issue. Legion of Superheroes number 19, written by Paul Levitz, art by Scott Collins and Geoff Johnson. So last issue, I mean, everything was just going wrong. It's hard to say otherwise, but the big thing was that the Legionnaires were building a rocket ship that can go into space, even with their tech all shut off. This issue picks up on a planet called Weber's World, which is completely artificial, and so the whole planet just is dead. And we see that the Emerald Empress is flying around with her glowing green laser eye thing. And she's just flying around, shooting people, vaporizing them, and just murdering in a general sense. And she's apparently talking to Tharok, who's basically just egging her on, just like, yeah, no, do it, kill them. Like, this is your planet, do whatever you want with it. So that's going on. And then as she has cornered a small group of civilians, a red and blue blur jumps into the scene, and it's Mon-El, and he's like, no one is going to die today. And he looks around, he's like, okay, no one else is going to die today. So then we cut back to the Promethean Giant, where Phantom Girl and the other two are there, and they're outrunning the giant who's just scratching his arm. And they're like, oh, what are we going to do? Should we save these civilians that are trapped here? And they're like, okay, but they kind of ate our teammates, so should we even bother? They're kind of dicks. But then the frost-powered guy, the ice guy, it's Breck is his name. I couldn't tell you his superhero name, but regardless, he tries freezing the giant's finger, and he's like, maybe that'll block it, or at least make him scratch somewhere else. But then, it's a giant, so it immediately breaks through the ice. He tries to freeze it again. Jacques jumps in and is like, no, be careful, and they both end up getting crushed, seemingly. Phantom Girl sees this, and she's like, oh my god, I'm getting all my friends killed. Oh, Jesus, take me next. I'm done with all of this. And she tries to, jump into it, and it seems like it might actually have hit her. So then we go back to Weber's World. Whole lot of destruction going on, and Emerald Empress is basically just tearing apart the planet just to get to Mon-El. Mon-El's, of course, busy as the destruction goes on, saving all the civilians, and he's setting them down. He's like, all right, you seem to be safe here. I'm going to go deal with that. And they're like, our whole planet's coming apart. we're not really safe anywhere. Could you just get us off planet before it completely destroys itself? And he's like, there are other Legionnaires coming, but I'm like, I'm busy, bro. So he goes back to fight the Empress, and he gets blasted hard all the way up into outer orbit as the Legionnaires show up, and they're like, oh, hey, it's Mon-El. It looks like he's fighting against Emerald Empress, so that's kind of an issue. And she flies up to continue fighting with him up in orbit. Then we cut over to the edge of the United Planets where the Persuader is kind of just chilling. And he's like, oh man, Tharok, I'm talking to you over hologram. This is great. Everything is going fantastically now that the Legionnaires are gone and all the technology is malfunctioning. How's it going controlling that Promethean giant anyway? And Tharok is like, oh, it's going great. I mean, I'm losing it a little bit. Really, I can't focus on two things. I'm going to go do the giant thing. I'll talk to you later, Persuader. And Persuader's like, yep, nope, no problem. And as soon as Tharok signs off, he's like, I'm going to betray you so hard once we're the ones in charge of things. So then we see Empress is pissed off because Brainiac put his force field around Mon-El. And then everyone in the ship is like, hey, Brainy, isn't that force field supposed to protect us? Like, isn't it holding the ship together? And Brainiac's like, oh, don't worry. We have like 8 seconds until our ship completely falls apart. That's more than enough to give Mon-El a chance to get back up. Mon-El's like, yep, I'm up. No one ring that bell. So he gets out of the force field. He goes to throw a punch. Empress is just literally already on top of him. She uses her eye again, and this time it seems to be nearly fatal, where we get the reaction shots of all of the different Legionnaires that were on the ship. So apparently he's still alive, though. Empress comes up and she's like, oh, well, I will fix that. And she does that thing where every time she says the word I, and she says it a lot, she uses EYE. Just a note. At that point, the Legionnaires exit the ship, and she's like, oh, cool, I'm going to kill you guys too. But then one of them, I think Element Lad, is surrounding Empress in solid inertron, so she's going to be unable to escape from there. And the other Legionnaires bring Mon-El into the ship, and they're like, we're doing everything we can to keep him alive, but right now it's touch and go. And then the final page is Chameleon Lad, I think her name is like Glorith, and Ultra Guy, whatever his name is. They have ended up on Glorith's homeworld because she cast a spell last issue to get them there. And as they arrive, they're like, uh-oh, something's wrong. There it feels like an earthquake. And then far beneath them on the planet, Validus is coming up through the planet's core to attack them. And that's the issue. Emerald Empress is the only one of the Fatal Five I actually know. Like, she's the only one that's even kind of familiar to me. All the other names I had to deeply review before getting into this review. So I appreciate the fact that they gave her an issue where it's just like, yeah, no, she's a big threat. She is a part of this, and we're showing off her power set. And that's more than I feel like I've gotten for everyone else in the Fatal Five. I get that Tharok's smart, and I get that Validus is a big beast guy, but Persuader I don't know anything about, and have we met the 5th guy? I don't recall. So yeah, I'm just a little bit, I don't want to say burned out, but they're obviously killing off so many members. So either A, this is going to go up right to the finale, in which case I could see them actually losing, or at least a Pyrrhic victory where enough of the Legion is dead that it's like, all right, did we really win it all? Or I see them just doing a big reset where, they're time travelers. They're able to do that stuff. I can see them doing a reset. So either way they go, I'm at least interested in the overall plot. I still think it has the issue of too many side quests going on at the same time with not enough direction as to what is happening where. It just gets a little bit confusing reading month to month. So I'm going to give this one I gotta say, I really did enjoy Geoff Johnson's art. Scott Collins is a little hit or miss for me, but when it got to Geoff stuff, I think it actually looked pretty good. So I'm going to give this one a 6.5, and hopefully I can keep even some of these names by the time it comes around to be next month, but I am not hoping for much. Sword of Sorcery number 7, written by Christy, Marx, art by Aaron Lopresti. So last issue, Eclipso came into Gemworld, killed the head of House Citrine, and then all the knowledge in Citrine went to Ingvi, who kind of passed out. This issue picks up in House Turquoise. They're looking after Ingvi, and immediately Lady Gracie's like, all right, that person could shadow walk. We got to deal with this. Lay out a bunch of candles so there's no shadows anywhere. Put Ingvi in bed so that she can recover. She just got a whole bunch of memories from all the people in her house going back generations. She's going to need some like Advil or something. Meanwhile, I got to go deal with the whole situation of this guy. So at that point, she goes off. She needs to go see House Citrine, make sure they're in order. The bodyguard guy goes with her, and Amaya's like, okay, yeah, sure. You guys did this. Seems like it's all my fault, so I'm kind of really shook right now. And he looks over towards the new Lord Turquoise, Preet, and he's like, oh, I was just going to bail. This seems a bit out of my realm. And Amaya's like, please stay with me. And he's like, okay, fine, whatever, I'll stay. Cool, whatever. So Graciole arrives at House Citrine. Apparently, Ingvi had a brother who is grieving over the death of his mother, and as Graciole arrives, they basically lay it down like, yeah, we don't know how it happened. Someone just appeared here and killed her. Like, we didn't trip any alarms or anything. And she says it was someone from House Onyx, but like not now. It came from Earth. It's just one bad guy. We'll deal with it. We need you to light up all the different corners. Don't let any shadows in. Meanwhile, we're going to take the little boy here, take him to his sister so that he can make sure she's all right. Because the power was originally supposed to go to him, but because he wasn't of age yet, the power instead went to Ingvi. So at this point, we cut to House Onyx. And they're having basically a annual meeting of, hey, everybody, let's walk through the rules of House Onyx and how we don't kill the lords in the major houses. And Eclipso walks in. Mind you, he's called Lord Kala, but I'm going to keep calling him Eclipso. And he's like, hey, everybody, I'm back. What you reading there? Oh, this seems pathetic in that you have put House Onyx to shame because of it. I'm going to lead you guys into a much better world. And the head of House Onyx, Akikra, is like, okay, we don't know who you are, but you brought up a really sensitive time in our past of Lord Kala, because that guy was a dick, so we're going to go ahead and kill you now. And Eclipso turns some of the, I guess, weaker members of House Onyx, and they all start attacking the stronger members. Some of them are killed, a lot of them escape, and Onyx is like, all right, whatever, screw them, they're gone, they're not going to be a problem. Anyway, we're going to go attack House Diamond. So at this point, Ingvi wakes up. She knows her mother is dead. She consoles her brother, and they talk for a second. And at that point, Graciole's like, okay, like, seriously, we need you to focus. Can you pull back anything in your memory about this guy and, like, what's up with him? And Ingvi gives the whole backstory of long ago, there was a lord from House Diamond and a lord of House Onyx and a lady of House Diamond who got married, had a kid, but that blood pairing had never happened before. And apparently it was like cursed, and it made a sociopathic little dude out of it named Kala. And when he became a man, he killed his parents and took on the powers by a powerful black diamond that he created. And he was born during an eclipse, he got his power during an eclipse, and he gets basically 10 times stronger during solar eclipses. So he is able to enslave anybody to his will using his black diamond. And someone from House Amethyst, Lady Chandra, took the essence of him into his black diamond and imprisoned him on Earth with intent to destroy him. Obviously, she didn't get that far. The whole black diamond probability happened, and then we ended up here. So at that point, Amaya puts it together of like, Constantine knew all this. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to shoot him dead. I'm going to rip out his throat. But then we cut over to House Diamond, and all the lords of House Diamond are awoken. They go into the throne room, and they're like, what's the meaning of this? What's going on? And the guards are like, prepared to bow to Lord Kala. And they're like, what do you mean, not the Lord here? Goes inside, sees him sitting on the throne, and they're like, hi, I'm Lord Kala. And they're like, oh, okay, get him off the throne. And he's like, actually, they answer to me now, out of all of House Diamond. And the Lord of House Diamond starts getting in a sword fight with Eclipso. The two princes are kept back. The younger one, I think it's Zushan, is like, oh, we have to get through and help Father. And the other one's like, nah, I'm good. So Eclipso offers up the deal, bow to me, and I'll let you keep your House Diamond. And he's like, never. And he's like, all right, chops off the Lord's head. And immediately the blood power goes into the older son, the one who was like, nah, I'm good here. And Eclipso's like, same deal. I'll let you keep control of House Diamond if you bow to me. And he's like, yes, totally, absolutely. I accept your offer. And, sorry, Zushan was the dick. I don't know what the other one is. I think it's like a Rayshan or something like that. Or sorry, Hadron. So Hadron's like, oh, brother, you betrayed the good House Diamond. And he's like, hey, Eclipso, is it cool if I kill my brother? And he's like, oh, no, by all means, go for it. So using the full power of his house's blood magic, he's really able to, like, lay into his brother, breaking his sword, stabbing him in the side. And then Akikra shows up, kicks him in the face, and drags Hadron out. And he's like, oh, she took my kill. I wasn't done with them. And Eclipso's like, yeah, nah, she's been a real thorn in the side, but we'll get to her. So then we go back to House Turquoise, and Preet basically logics out, like, okay, Eclipso went to House Citrine first because he knew that that lady would have all the knowledge on how to beat him. So that was obviously the first step. Second step was we had House Onyx attacked because that would be a threat. So it's making sense that he would go there. It also makes sense that he would probably go to House Diamond. So it's worth mentioning that they had that. So all in all, we have the one house who's able to defeat him still standing, of House Amethyst. And Grayshield's like, yep, that all makes sense to me. I need the full power of House Amethyst, though, which means we got to go talk to my sister. So let's go see if she still has her portal open, and we'll go talk to her. And at that point, we see Lady Morgul. She's awoken by one of her men, and she's like, you don't want to see what's going out in the courtyard? It's kind of nuts out there. And as she looks over, she sees her entire courtyard set on fire with all the citizens turned to Eclipso's side. And he's like, hey, I'm here to destroy you. And that's the issue. So I really like this. I've always been in on this book because just this deeper lore, just this background stuff going on of, oh, these houses and their blood magic, and they have this ability, that ability. Add in Eclipso, who's already been an established character, even within the own New 52, and you lay in this backstory of, oh, these houses, and here's how he came to be, and all this stuff. And I don't think it's removing the mystery or the strength from the character. I think it's just embracing it to say, he did these horrible, awful things, and he is an ancient evil that nearly shaped the world itself. And now he's back. It does a great job of selling that. Art-wise, Aaron Lopresti has always killed this book, and I think it's safe to say he still is here. I like the idea of House Diamond not only being split, but also falling to Eclipso. There's just a lot of build up here. It's all working out well. I don't see any real flaws with it. I'm going to give this one an 8.5. No, yeah, 8.5. I'm right on the border of 9, though. It is extremely well done, and it's just I don't think that Christy Marx had this in mind begin with. I think she was kind of told to do this because it doesn't really flow with the rest of what's been happening. But it works so effortlessly. I really enjoy the way she's handled it. So yeah, 8.5. Looking forward to seeing how it wraps up over the next single issue. Is next issue the last issue? Wow. I'm going to miss this book. And that's it. That's all the comics that came out from DC Comics this April 17th, 2013. And next week, a lot of more of the same. We got 13 comics coming out, but more importantly, it's the final week in WTF month. And I mean, it's kind of just been on a slope downwards in terms of the shock and awe. You begin the month with resetting the universe, and I'm sure they'll end the month with something like, oh no, Alfred is actually atheist, or Barry Allen isn't a virgin, or Tim Drake has an STD. I don't know why I went kind of that route on all three of them, but regardless, you get my point. It's not going to be that amazing of a thing, but we'll see. I could be entirely wrong. Maybe they reset the timeline again. It's entirely possible. But coming out next week, I may as well tell you, we have the number 19 issues of Batman the Dark Knight, Superman, Red Lanterns, Flash, The Fury of Firestorm, The Savage Hawkman, All-Star Western, Teen Titans, iVampire, and Justice League Dark, as well as the number 7 issue of Talon and the number 3 issue of Katana. And the only one I care about in that whole thing is iVampire, as that is the final issue of iVampire. I will mourn you, my sweet, sweet prince. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. I said at the beginning all the socials and stuff like that, but just to recap, Twitter, maybe, Discord, Reddit, and Patreon, all in the description. All of that available at any given point. Feel free, reach out. I do read it, every single one, especially the hurtful ones. I read those twice. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening, however it is you consume this podcast. Be sure to share it, like it, give it 5 stars, deliver it by carrier pigeon to everyone in your family. But yeah, always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.